Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's Constance the Reader, and today we're going to be doing the best books of 2022 video. So even though I know that the year is not technically over yet, it is the day after Christmas, and I am like in the middle of reading some books, I decided to just go ahead and make my list for the books that were like, wow, that was great. I do think that some of the books that I am finishing before the year is over are really, really good. But even if I waited till the end of the year, I don't know if they would have really like stood out to me enough to be on the list. So I'm going to be talking about the books that I think I've mentioned several times too throughout the year as well. So let's just get right into it. I got my little list right here and I'm excited. So as y'all know, my reading goal for the year was 200. I think it was it just 200 books or was it 250 books? Either way, I've surpassed that. Oh, no, it was 200. It was 200 books. I made it to 250 and I'm still going strong. So I'm not even done. I've passed 250. So I'm amazing. And I'm happy about that. And I've read a lot of really great books and I'm really happy. Now, I will say when I was going through my Goodreads, I realized I've read a lot of manga. So there were some books that will pop up into my head and I was like, did I even read that this year? I read it the year before. So I've got a lot of stuff in my mind. So that's why we got a list going on. So one of the first books that I wanted to put on this list was Under the Blade by Matt Serafini. This is a horror slasher book about a woman. So she is a final girl and she has since moved away from her town where all of this stuff happened. She is like a college professor of English and she didn't get picked up to like teach for the next semester or something like that. And her friend is like, okay, I think it's time that you write a book about your experience. You could make money. It's in the field that you like, so on and so forth. She's been resistant for years to do this, but she decides, you know what, I'm kind of desperate. I'm going to go back and I'm going to write about it. And of course, like with many slasher books, some other stuff is going on in the town. So yeah, there's like a secondary story going on too. So she comes back. It's kind of like the talk of the town. Things start to happen and it's very bloody. It was very freaky. I think it was a really, really great book. And there's a bit of a twist that I really enjoyed. I also listened to this as an audiobook and I thought the audiobook was fantastic. So I would highly recommend listening to it if you do. But overall, it was such a good read. I think I may have listened to it in one day, if not one, like the equivalent of 24 hours, because it was very hard to pause. There were some really like heart-stopping moments. As I said, the twist was very good. I did not see that coming. And if they made a second book to it, which I do kind of feel like they left it open to possibly being one, you never know, I would listen to it immediately. It was that good. The second was The Violence by Delilah Dawson. So this one is really interesting because I got approved for it on NetGalley, put it off until the week that it released at the beginning of this year. At first I was kind of like, I don't really know how I feel about it because it takes place during COVID. It's not like I'm completely traumatized by COVID and can't deal with any story taking place during like the pandemic, but it still was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. So I did not know exactly where we were going to go with it. And honestly, where it went, I was obsessed. I really enjoyed that book. I've seen some people dislike it and that's totally fine. I can understand why some people like weren't really into it. This is following like three different women, a grandmother, her daughter, so a mother, and then the granddaughter. From their point of view, it's the pandemic. Something is also happening where people are kind of losing control, and one minute they will just become very violent. Time has kind of gone on. It's been a few months, and the family of women that we're following, the grandmother and the mother are estranged from each other ish, because of some context which you learn, and the daughter is in an abusive relationship. And without giving too much away, okay, here's this disease that makes people lose control. Her husband is abusive, so, you know, you can report if somebody is having, if there's like an outbreak. So you kind of see where we're going with this. You know, the daughter, like the youngest daughter, the granddaughter, she sees all this. It's pretty hard for her. Her mother is dealing with this. She sees what her mother deals with. They're estranged from the grandmother. The grandmother has her own problems. And it might sound kind of cheesy, but it was a story about like women overcoming this or that. And I really liked that part of the book. I am pretty sure I almost cried at the very end. It was just very entertaining to me. So I was very, very happy with the book. I loved it. I mean, I talked about it so much. I thought it was really great. Next, I read Take a Hint, Dani Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is a trilogy by Talia Hibbert, the Brown sisters. It is Chloe, Dani, and oh my God, I can't remember the younger daughter's name. Eve. I've read all three, but I loved Take a Hint, Dani Brown. Dani has to be one of my favorite sisters of the three. She is definitely, she's not the most different and out there because you still have Eve, and then Chloe is different in her own way too. But I just like, Dani really speaks to me. I would want to be her friend in real life. I want to be friends with all three of them, but Dani, I would want her to be my best friend. So we're following Dani. She's a teacher at a college. She's awesome. She's amazing. I mean, what is there not to like about Dani? But she's not very good at love. It doesn't really seem like she likes committed monogamous relationships, and that's totally fine, but she also kind of keeps people at arm's length. Then you have Zaf, who is a security guard there, who she has like a back and forth with him. Very, very, very hot, very steamy. I love it. And they kind of have, it's a fake dating trope situation. I think that it had great representation in it. It was a great romance. It had its steamy bits that I thought were really well done. And, you know, it was nice. It got you burning hot, okay? But overall, it was very, very exciting, very entertaining. There was like a bit of a miscommunication, but not enough that I hated it. And of all three of the sisters' boyfriends, he's the only one that I like. I hate Red. I'm not a fan of Red. I don't like the guy who Eve ends up with. I can't remember his name. It's probably Henry. Dani's boyfriend is the only one I like. He's the only one that actually seems like a good, genuine person who didn't like start off as like a total piece of shit. You know, like they had like a cute little thing with each other at the very beginning of the book. The other two had these really like awful first impressions of these men in their lives. And I'm like, why did they end up with them? I don't know, especially Eve. Eve's was probably my least favorite relationship of the three, or of the two between her and Chloe. I really don't like Red. But Eve's boyfriend was not a fan. I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. So this was a memoir. Jennette McCurdy is a child actress. I never watched iCarly, but I've always been familiar with who Jennette McCurdy is. Like, I know the people that were in the show. As soon as I saw the title and the cover of that book, I knew that I really wanted to read it. And I had randomly seen a video, you know, those like compilation videos that sometimes are on YouTube where they do like a background story of someone. So I had just recently seen that conversation happening about Jennette and her mom, and that her mom was abusive towards her, or her mother's abuse. So I was vaguely familiar. As soon as I saw it, I was like, okay, now I definitely have to read it. I listened to it as an audiobook, finished it in a day. And it's hard to say like this book was so good because it deals with such heavy topics, obviously child abuse, child neglect, substance abuse, eating disorders. So there's lots of like content warnings going on, but just in general, it was good. And also listening to Jennette McCurdy she's the narrator and she does a fantastic job. There's just something about her voice that I really, really like. Really easy to get through. I didn't necessarily want to read it physically, but I mean, I wouldn't mind having a physical copy, I guess, but as an audiobook, it was great. I would definitely recommend listening to it. Hola Papi by John Paul Brammer. Such a good memoir. It was so funny. I personally did not know who John Paul Brammer was. I saw his book when I was just going through Barnes & Noble at some point this year, and it just sounded like it would be so funny, and it really, really was. Actually, I have it behind me. Let me get it. It was so funny. So he has like his own little column, like in real life, and this was just such a funny memoir, but it was also pretty really like heartwarming memoir. So the thing about this is, you know, for him growing up, his grandmother who immigrated here and his mom were kind of more concerned with just having him assimilate and not necessarily be close to his culture, which was something that he struggled with his whole life. So he is biracial. He does have a white father, but his mother's side of the family is Mexican, I believe. And yeah, he had a struggle with that, trying to find himself, kind of also figuring out his sexuality as he grew older, what he was really into. So there were these moments that I could relate to. There were these moments that I found so funny in terms of like we're similar in age. So some of the things that he referenced, I was like, oh my God, that brought me back to when I was a kid. Also being biracial and how you fit in society and where you fit with friends. Like I can relate to that. And just in general, this was so good. It had its funny moments. It also had some, not too dark. It didn't get too dark in this book, but did have a moment where he was in a somewhat abusive relationship. It was more emotional and mental, it seemed like. I don't think that anything ever got super physical. I can't remember, but I do think that one point there may have been a coercion situation going on with his relationship. And that is sad. So that can get kind of dark as well. So just as a content warning, but in general, there were so many funny moments in this where he comes out to his friend in a Walmart parking lot. I would recommend this. I also loved White Smoke by Tiffany D. Jackson. And this is another one of those books where it's like, you know, can I say I really love it? Because it made me cry. Like I've said it so many times since I've read that book. The last 10 minutes as I listened to it in my kitchen making chili, I sobbed. I sobbed at the very end. And you might think that that might not be one of the best, one that would end up on a best books list, but this was my first book by Tiffany D. Jackson, and I was obsessed with it. I absolutely loved it, and I would definitely recommend listening to it as an audiobook. Basically, you're following a family that is traveling kind of like cross country, start a new life. They come from California. It is like a mixed race couple in terms of like the mother and her two children are Black, but the stepfather and his daughter are white. And they come to this community that is pretty clearly segregated. And they're given the opportunity to live in this newly renovated home, and she's an artist, and basically they just get to live there for free. But the block that they live on has a bunch of like burned down houses. Like clearly something bad happened in this neighborhood, but no one is telling them what actually happened. The main like point of view that you're following is the oldest daughter. She's kind of the reason why they have to come out here. The one thing that was so fresh about that book though is that she's clearly like, she suffered from a very traumatic situation that led her to have a substance abuse problem. And it really sucks. It's just weed. That was the thing. It was mostly just weed. So I was like confused why it was that big of a deal. But it seemed like everybody was very dismissive of this, like this thing that happened to her that like the whole family experienced, but really traumatized her specifically. And that was very disappointing. But anyway, this town, there's just something not quite right about it. The people that brought the family here are white, and you start to see that they are the mayor, they are the cops, they are the city council, they are the school board. It's clearly, you know, kind of giving, you know, that kind of vibe where, okay, this seems like a white town, we're segregated, the white people are in control, and it's not looking good. And yeah, so there's a deeper story that's going on. You think that it might be a supernatural element, which had its moments that were really scary to me. I don't like the idea of some of the things that were going on in here. And one of those scenes really scared the shit out of me, I'm gonna be honest with you, because there was a camera set up in the house. Ugh, it's too much. But ultimately, I thought it was a really great book. I feel like it could be a second book, but the thing that was just so like, it kind of was left on a cliffhanger, but in a weird way, I don't hate that. And I think usually in books where they do that, where I feel like I'm left like, I don't have an answer, I need an answer, I might not necessarily like that book as much because I don't like when things are cliffhangers. But with this one, I don't know what it was. I just kind of was like, I had such a such an emotional response to the ending. I'm not mad that I don't know. I'm sad that I don't know, because I need to know if everything is going to be okay. So that's where I'm at with that book. And it was a lot, but I definitely would recommend it. Now, I've seen some people talk about some of the other books that Tiffany D. Jackson has written, and she just recently did another book, and I think it's like a kind of like a play on Carrie. I'm really interested on reading that. I think it's called The Weight of Blood. We'll see. Maybe I'll get to it next year. And I had some honorable mentions that I wanted to talk about. Some of these I mentioned these because it's an ongoing series, and I've read the first 3 books, but it's not a completed series. So my honorable mention is going to be the 3 books I read by Carrie Doyle, which is the Trouble in Paradise trilogy, trilogy series. Takes Two to Mango, Something's Guava Give, and The Girl with the Dragon Fruit Tattoo. It's a cozy mystery. It's so funny. I discovered it this year, just randomly requesting it on NetGalley. I listened to it as an audiobook. I read it on my Kindle. I think both formats are really good. I really did love the audiobook, the narrator, but it was so funny. And this last book, The Girl with the Dragon Fruit Tattoo, was so good. And then the other cozy mystery one that is an ongoing series is The Noodle Shop Mystery by Vivian Chen. Now, I don't think I read the first book this year, but I read the bulk of the series so far in the year of 2022, and it is so good. Okay, I could not talk enough about the series. I've recommended it to my sister. She likes it, and that's enough for me. So, very, very, very good. I had to mention those 2 because they're just so fun. It's just such a fun ride to read cozy mystery, in my opinion. It's not too much. It's not too much of a thriller mystery that it's like, okay, I'm following some cop. This is just like normal people stumbling into solving mysteries, but you get to know a bunch of people within this community. So every new book you read, you get to revisit maybe some character you met in the beginning who now is more a part of the story, and I like that. And the manga I read, I definitely wanted to make this separate. So I read all of Tokyo Ghoul, and I thought it was great. I had watched the first season of Tokyo Ghoul many years ago. I thought it was good. And when I wanted to watch the second season, I was very lost. I did not know what was going on. So I abandoned it, didn't watch it again. Reading the series, I know that there were things, I'd have to go back and watch it, but you know, from what I remember, I know that there are things that were in the manga that were not in the anime. And that kind of makes me sad because the manga was so good. And it made me have a little bit more understanding, having tried to go into season 2 of Tokyo Ghoul, and then made me realize I have to read Tokyo Ghoul Re or whatever, because I know that it's going to be good. There was more of a lead up in the manga to what happens in the second season, and like the deeper story that's going on in the manga than you kind of got with the anime. I know I'm kind of stuttering here. So I'm definitely going to be reading the next box set, the sequel, whatever. And I don't think I'm going to never watch the second season. I might watch it just so I have the opportunity to be like, that was wrong. That wasn't in the manga. That wasn't in the book. Because I do like doing that. Just me. Next, this is one that I did not complete, but is ongoing, and that's Fire Force. It's almost over, but I started this series, and I did not realize it until I went and looked through Goodreads. I started this series this year, and it's been really, really good. I want to go back and kind of, maybe not start from the beginning, but I put a pause on reading all of the newer volumes, and I think I stopped at volume 27, so I haven't read anything since. Volume 30 just recently came out, and it's almost over. I kind of don't want to keep waiting until the next volume comes out, but in general, it's a really good story. I would highly recommend it. It has its faults, you know, it has a fan servicey character. It doesn't need to have that, in my opinion, because I think the story, the plot is it's interesting enough without having to have boobs and ass. You know what I mean? And the characters that have boobs and ass that keep just falling out of everything are, I'm not really sure how old they are, but they're definitely not adults. They're like 18 years old, 16, 17, 18-year-old, 19-year-olds. And they have the potential to be very powerful. Like, their power is good, but they're like a bumbling idiot, you know, bimbo. And I hate that for that character because she is more than that. You can tell that she has more potential. I'm not allowing that. And then, you know, you have the same thing where it's like everybody's obsessed with the one boy. I'm used to that. It's really the fan service that it's like, okay, can we stop? Chainsaw Man was one that I read the whole like first part. Now, it is a series that I want to go back and reread because when I was reading it the first time, I was very lost. I was forgetting what exactly these contracts were with devils, demons, whatever. I did eventually, you know, catch up and get to it, and the ending was insane, but I do want to go back and reread it just so I can refresh myself. I did start watching the anime, but I don't really care to watch something I've already read for some reason. I don't know what that's about, but that is just who I am. Bleach is ongoing. I am almost done with the second box set, and I am wanting to be done with the second box set this year. And that would mean that I've read 2 of the box sets in a year. And that is, what, almost 50 volumes. Because the second box set ends on volume 48, I believe, maybe 49. So that's a big accomplishment. So far, it's fantastic. I love the story. I love the series. Love Orihime. Basically, I'm on the arc right now where Orihime is kidnapped and she's taken to, I can't remember what it's not the Soul Society, it's Hukamundo, I think it is. I can't remember. But people have come to try to save her. Some people are powering up. And I'm excited about that. I'm excited. I like it. Zom 100, that's another ongoing series that's not totally complete, but that was a find for me this year and it was so good. It's about a young guy who is living in Japan and he is in like a job that has no appreciation for him. He's underpaid, he's overworked, he gets no break, but he still manages to have like a semi-positive attitude because that's just his personality. And one day he wakes up and there's a zombie apocalypse and he realizes, oh shit, I can actually finally do some things that I've wanted to do because I've never felt like I could take off of work. And he and some friends that he meets along the way are trying to find like family and shelter and possibly a cure for this zombie apocalypse, but they're also crossing things off of their bucket list. And I've really enjoyed it so far. There was one volume that made me actually tear up because I thought it was so good, but I also ended up laughing at the end. So, you know, I don't know how it's going to go until the end. It might stop being that the endings kind of end on a positive note. It might start getting a little bit darker, which makes me sad to think about. And I hope that's not what happens. But ultimately, it's a good series and I would recommend it. And lastly, this is another one that's not complete. I thought it was. When I got volume 10, I thought that was it, but I was wrong. And that is Call of the Night. So this is another one that has its flaw. And I hate the fact that the creator made the main character that we're following, the young boy, 14. He absolutely could have been a young adult for sure. It's a 14-year-old kid who is, you know, weirdly, I don't know, going through a midlife crisis or something like that. I don't know what, you know, you wouldn't call it midlife, but he doesn't like school. He doesn't really like the normal things that, you know, kids his age like. He likes to be out. He likes to be somewhat alone. He likes to be out at night, and he runs into a vampire. And yes, this vampire is also pretty young, but she's also been a vampire for like 30 years. So she is much older than him. It doesn't matter that she looks like him in terms of like age and height and stuff. She is an adult and he is not. And all his friends are kids and they are somehow getting involved with these adult vampire women. And him not wanting to go to school anymore is not something that's just for a 14-year-old. That could absolutely be a young adult. I don't know why you couldn't just make him 21, 20, 19, 20, 21. You could have, but no, we had to make him 14. That's the thing I don't like about it, but I do like the series because I really like all of the vampires that you meet. There's kind of like a deeper thing going on. There's somebody who is kind of like a vampire hunter, and that was a very interesting story. I did figure that out pretty early on who it was, and like how they were connected to the vampires, but it's been a fun thing to read. I've been really, you know, I mean, I read all 10 volumes this year so far. I think the last few volumes are obviously going to come out next year. It might be a 12, maybe 16 volume series. At the very end of these volumes, like the author, you know, the creator makes a little note about like, I didn't really expect for this to be going on so long. That's really funny and interesting. I don't know how it ends. I don't even know if technically it's over. Like there is an anime, so I don't know if the manga is going past the anime, or obviously, you know, I'm in America, I'm getting volumes after the fact. It's probably already done in Japan. So I don't know how it ends, but I don't know how many more volumes come out, but I'm excited. I'm very interested, and I loved it. I loved it so much. But yeah, I wish that he just was not 14. And that's it. Those are my best, some of my favorite or best books of 2022. Tell me what you think about my list in the comments. Did you read any of these books this year, or have you read them in the past? Do you want to read them in the future? I'd love to know if you have any recommendations for me in the year 2023. I would love to have more on my TBR. That's not sarcasm at all. But thank you so much for watching my video. I hope all of y'all had a great holiday. I really, really do. I did, and I hope you enjoy my video about the books I got for Christmas. It was great. Just know that there will also be another video of the books I ended up buying in December. Even though I did say that I did not want to buy anything and I was giving myself a book buying ban, I will say that although I did buy manga, I didn't overdo it. So I didn't buy anything that was on my wish list, so people actually were able to get me gifts. And I didn't just keep mass buying things and like having orders from Right Stuff that were like 7, 8, 9, 10 books or whole series. I'm trying to get better. So yeah, so thank you so much for watching my video. If you like the video, please like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and you have a good day. Goodbye.